podcast. I am here with my special guest, who I'm very excited to talk to, Peter Ricq. How you doing?
Good, good. You?
I'm doing good. I'm super excited for this convo because I feel like your work had a bigger effect on me than I feel like especially in the US we get a lot of Canadian cartoons, but because they're not like massive, we don't get all the behind the scenes and like who made it, and it's
Yeah.
not really clear. So when I found out you made League of Super Evil, I was like, no fucking way, this guy's the dopest. And I just started following you on Instagram and like obsessing over all your different projects.
It's funny because like all your other guests are pretty famous, and I'm like the only one that is very obscure. Yeah, you're
Well, I'm hoping
just
to
like
change that because you're like such a badass. I don't understand. Like, Instagram is like beefing with you, dude. I feel like you're so prolific, and you're more prolific than like people who are like booming, and you're just as talented. So I never understood that.
I think it's because I do so many different things, and it's just very confusing.
Mm,
Or if you do one thing, Instagram loves that. It looks very nice and very um, it's more appealing, and people know what to get. And for me, it's just like,
yeah.
what is this? Did you even do this? What's going on? Yeah, but I
And
can't
you
help
do
it.
stuff I know, and that was actually going to be one of my first questions. I'll give you a compliment, and you do these things at such a high level that I think, sometimes if someone does something different and it's kind of like the level drops, I think it's easy for people to understand that it might be the same person. But because you can go from like realism to pointillism to super cartoony to very graphic, like Mignola style, I think it's even more confusing for people who don't aren't super familiar with your work, that like
Yeah.
you're able to do these things at such a high level and they're very different. Like,
Hmm.
so I
Thanks.
guess I'll lead into my first question. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, just my first question is, how do you feel about being such a diverse artist? Like, do you feel like it's a benefit or a negative?
I think for me personally, it's uh, for like challenging my mind and all that. It's really good, and I do find it makes me a better artist. But yeah, it does make my audience smaller because it's not consistent. So that's the backlash about it. But for me, I love to do like when I take 2 months off from drawing and just do music or writing. When I go back to illustrating, I have all these new ideas, and because I've been listening to some podcasts about like something like your podcast. When I hear about these artists that I actually was even familiar with, and then I'll check out their work, and I would read comics or movies, and it just gives me new ideas. So when I get back to it, come back to it really fresh, and it's
Mm.
exciting. And then all making all those styles, those different styles, I do bring some of it back to other things, to other styles.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
for pointillism, I brought back, let's do half pointillism when I did my kids book, so that the outlines
Hmm.
were big cartoony lines, but the interior were like very well rendered pointillism. And I would have never done that if I didn't do the cartoon and I didn't do the pointillism thing.
That's
It was
super
just
interesting. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were riffing.
no, that's it. So yeah, I don't even remember what I was gonna say now. So, yeah,
Oh,
that's
my bad, dude. I hate cutting off the flow. It's the delay. So I was gonna ask, do you feel like, with that being said, like, do you feel that as time goes on and you're more experienced, that all of your different like ventures into different styles, do you feel like it's all culminating into like a certain style that is just like very much like one voice, or do you still feel like you're always going to be playing in these different arenas?
like everything comes together. It's like here's the style, like the most badass style ever. I don't think so. Like maybe I could do a painting that or a mural where there would be a lot of it integrated, but it would be very segregated and different in parts.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I don't think it's culminating to one epic thing that I can call mine.
I
I
feel
think
it.
because they're so different. It's hard to do. realism and then cartoony together. Oh, I guess I kind of did it once. I did a bunch like more realistic portraits with like very cartoony face, just like on the inside.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's a question you'll have to ask me. When I'm like at my deathbed when I'm 70. It's like, yes, I did it.
For sure. We'll run it back in like 50 years.
Yeah,
See how that
yeah.
goes. For sure. Well, I guess I know who you are, so sometimes I feel like I know people, so I jump right into the deep end on some of these interviews. But I guess for people who don't know you, uh, what would be your backstory? You feel like as how you became an artist and what led you to where you are today.
All right. So I was always really into illustrating, and my teachers noticed that I was drawing really well, so they would always get me to draw on the board whenever there was something to draw. And
Hmm.
I noticed, in comparison to other kids, I could draw a straight line with my free hand. When other kids, like when they draw, it's like very shaky.
Hmm.
So that's when I noticed, like, oh, maybe I'm better than other people. Uh, so really focused. I love drawing, and I got better than my brother. But then when I went to college, we had some Europeans, like Russian and French, or people who were going to our school in Canada, because I
Hmm.
was born and raised in Montreal, and they were really good. They were like years ahead of like me and the other Canadian students, because their schools are just top notch, like with real
Yeah.
teachers who are really educated, traditionally educated artists. I find in Canada they're so gun ho on um, making us abstract artists and
Mm.
when we don't even know the fundamentals. So it's really backwards. But yeah, so I thought, in comparison to other students, I wasn't the best anymore. I wasn't that good. And my friend, he went to a comic book school with Jose Holder, who draws comic books for Ubisoft now, I believe. And he's turning into a filmmaker. Anyway, he had the School of Apocalypse, the comic book school of Apocalypse. I think that was the name. That was in Montreal. And I did that for, oh, all right, so I went to the Apocalypse School of Comics, and then they taught me basically perspective, storytelling, um, how to draw faces, different ethnicities, different age, different sex, all stuff that I didn't learn in school, like real school. So
How
I did that.
how old were you at this time? Because you said
I
college.
was
I know that some of that is different from the U.S. to
yeah, in
Canada.
Quebec.
Like,
You have college and then university, so it's high school,
okay.
college, university. So I was 17 or 18, maybe between
Hmm.
17 and 19. And then after that, I went to university. I didn't want to go to university, but my parents really wanted me to go. And then one of my best friends, he's like, I'm going to animation in university. I was like, what the fuck? You can go to cartoon? You can draw cartoons in university? That's dope. So did that, and then I didn't get in. And my friend was saying, I don't understand. Like, everyone is really not that good, and you're better than me, and I got in. I was like, okay, well, next year. Next year, I didn't get in. I was like, what the fuck? So I spoke to the dean. And he told me that I wasn't good in comparison to everybody else. And I was like, whoa, that'd be awesome. Because I usually, but by that time again, I was like one of the best from for my age, from all my surroundings. So I was really
Hmm.
excited that if I would get in, I'd be surrounded by people who are better than me. Because the only way to get better is like
Yeah.
when you're with people who are better. And so I went and spoke to him, and he told me I wasn't good. And then I was like, well, can I try again? Blah blah blah. It's like, do you have a sketchbook? I was like, no, not with me. Send me your sketchbook, and I'll decide from there. And so I bought a sketchbook and drew in it all weekend. and gave it to him. And then I got on the waiting list, and then I got in. And then when the first class started, I noticed that nobody could draw, and some people had never drawn before. So it was really
Whoa.
weird. But yeah, going to university in animation, uh, I was in a really good group. We had the best year that they always talk about. Like, oh, that year was like kind of the dream team, basketball team in the Olympics. It was like they never had that after, and that's kind of the same thing with
Mm.
us. Like we had a lot of filmmakers who ended up making it, becoming directors, making features, and having series and all that. And that's where I met Phil Ivanusik, and he his graduate film was The League of Super Evil, and
Mm.
he asked if I wanted to help him put that together as a TV show, and I said yes, and I thought it would never get made. I think there was a possibility, but I would just learn from that and then do my own thing later.
Mm-hmm.
But Nerdcore bought it and then moved to Vancouver without graduating after 3 years of university. Yeah, and then moved to Vancouver and did that. And then comics were just like I didn't really do comics anymore. I was just creating TV shows and working as art director at Nerdcore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Nerdcore would get me to become their art director slash designer for all their new shows. And I had my name was
Oh
behind
wow.
like 8 shows. Yeah.
Whoa.
And
That's a
then
lot.
yeah, and then I told them I didn't want to be an art director. I wanted to be a director, and they would promise me things, and they would never deliver. It's like, oh, it's too much of a risk. You got to stick to art directing. It's like, yeah, but I can do both.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was kind of fed up, and I started a band. And with the band, I directed the music videos. There's one I didn't do, the second one, and it was we lost a lot of fans. And so I decided
Mm.
from then on, I'll be the only one directing to not have that happen
Mm-hmm.
again. The video was so bad. Um, so yeah, then from that, I wanted to make feature films, live action, and I was like focusing on how to work with actors. What's the difference between the cameras and what makes a movie look like a movie and what makes it look like a shitty, fan or inexperienced movie or a shitty B movie. So
Yeah.
with the money, I made good money, so I would hire DOPs and test different cameras and see what that difference was. And while that was happening, I quit Nerdcore to do music and then to do more art shows. I was also doing a bunch of art shows, and I started Oncerland, my first comic, and what else? Yeah, I was just doing that, touring, making music, doing the videos, doing the comic, doing art shows, and I also sold other TV shows to other companies, to other studios, and so I was working as a creative producer and on my own shows, but I was not that involved with because I was, it was like a side hustle. I was really focusing on the other things, and also I was working with these studios that didn't really listen to my voice, like didn't really appreciate my thoughts. So I was like, okay, well, why fight? So I just let them do their own thing. And
Yeah.
the last one, they really butchered the show, and it was awful. And they butchered my name. They would say I was really hard to work with, which I don't understand because I was just like, yeah, you guys do your own thing. And like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
so I made it really easy for them as opposed to like me knocking on the door and screaming. So I thought I'd handle it really, really well, especially after they tarnished my name. So then I haven't made a show since, but I made a feature film, and that was great because
Mm-hmm.
I had carte blanche. Basically, I had a producer who believed in me and respected me and made sure I get what I want. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it really came out better because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I jumped around a lot, but yeah, that was kind of how my life was. for a little bit. So maybe
Yeah, I
a
know
few
that's like
years.
what 20 years. That's like 20 years
Yeah,
condensed.
yeah, because I'm 42, so um, yeah, those last 15 years of my life where I was doing a lot of things, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, there's a few things I really probably, and I don't know if you'll want to go into them because I feel like they might either be too nerdy or too specific. So let me know if you want to like kind of like say fuck off to any of it. But
no, no, that's
I've been excited to talk to you for a while, for sure.
yeah.
Well, one of the things I'm super interested in personally is, well, for one, Canadian animation, because I don't think it gets enough of a rap. I think it gets kind of like, at least I'm from California, so we always think we're big shit. So you go to class, people think that this is where everything, but there's a lot going on in other places. And I was always very interested in like the nerdcore era because I felt like for a long time you guys were dominating like a handful of projects, and I think that was like your era. And you say you were like art directing, creative directing like 8 shows. So was that era like the same? Because there was like a similar style to a lot of that stuff where it was like Slug Terra and Stormhawks. Were you working on all of those projects? Is that why they look
No, that
somewhat
was
similar?
Andy Poon. Andy Poon art
Mm.
directed those two, and he has
Oh,
that
okay.
very that style that looks very much like that. And we had problems with Voltar because of his original shape was just a circle, so it wasn't that interesting when he turned. And then they got Andy Poon
Mm.
to redesign the helmet
Mm-hmm.
in League of Super Evil. But
Mm-hmm.
I designed endangered species. I think that's what the name was. But then when it got made and when it got greenlit, I wasn't there anymore.
Mm.
And then I designed or directed A for Awesome, but that was
Yeah.
based off Peter DeStina, who used to be the art director on it. But he was having
Mm-hmm.
issues because he did maybe 2 years of sketches like to find the style, and
Yeah.
he just blew up. Like he just couldn't. He didn't know what to do anymore. And then
I feel
I
it.
was. They were going on season 3 of League of Super Evil, and it was pretty much settled, like the style. And then they asked me if I
Yeah.
wanted to take a hack at it, and I was like, sure. I basically did Peter Tina style mixed with my style. And
I
then I
feel
was
it.
working on some other stuff for them. Epic Eric, which was a show that's kind of like the dad is a spirit, and they have to put pants on them. And then Chris Pratt and some other kid they're kind of fairies or elves, and then they have to go and save the dad at a certain time.
This is a
Do you
Pixar
remember?
movie?
Yeah, it's like
I
heavy
haven't seen this
metal
one. Oh, Onward?
fantasy. Yes, Onward. So Epic
Oh,
Eric
okay, I
was
remember.
created by Phil and Dav from League of Super Evil, my buddies, and it was basically Onward but way better. And I never got. So I was designing that.
uh
And I had one called String Bean Detectives, which was a 1930s Art Deco style, really funny cop show, and then
mhm.
that never got made. Also, Nerdcore, they would buy my shows, and then they would just never put them in development or production. So they get me to do
Wow.
their shows and put my stuff on the shelf. And so I told them, if you're using me so much to do these things and you're buying my stuff and not doing anything with it, then I want to create a credit on these other shows because now I'm not even allowed to sell it to other studios. And then they're like,
Mm.
okay, fine, fine, but yeah, yeah, I just ended up quitting before. Um, yeah, so there was a bunch of
You
stuff, a
know,
bunch of cool stuff. Yeah, and you can see on my
I'm sorry to
website.
cut you off.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, my bad. Sorry for the delay. I didn't realize you were still talking. Can I ask you about that? What is the motivation of a studio to buy shows or to like take on projects that they don't need? Like, I don't really get that because why didn't they just try to hire you like as a full time person and just have you in the position? I don't understand why like the weird
yeah.
maneuvering.
I think it's because they want you to not do it, or they have something
Mm,
similar and they don't want you to pursue it, or
mm.
yeah, they do that a lot. I don't really get it. I'm sure there's a really evil motive somewhere. But the way I see it is that they just don't want this to be developed further. They just want you to shut up because for them to buy a property, an IP, it's about 1,000 to 2,000 bucks for like 2 years.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's really cheap. And then once you get
Yeah.
it greenlit, that's when both of you guys make money.
Yeah.
And the first show that you'll ever make for like the young creators out there who've never done it, you need to get your stuff out there and don't um, don't say like, oh, they're only paying me this much. I'm getting only 5% of my own IP. They're gonna make all the money. It's like, yeah, you're nobody. Like you have to start somewhere. So like with League of Super Evil, I think we had ownership like 5% between the three of us. And
Oh
every
wow.
time for episodic royalties, I think I got a $500. They made a fortune
Hmm.
with it. And then also those 5%, we never see it because the studios, what they usually do, they take that money and they use your 5% or whatever money they've made from your show, and then they use that money to develop other series. And when they go to Cannes, they get a booth and buy booths for everybody and their own hotel, and so you'll never see that money back.
Show. Like what type of job should you be vying for as a first time creator who is also relatively not super experienced? Can you ask for like that director position?
They can put in the contract. It won't be defined as 100%, but it'll be at the best interest if all parties agree. So, because if you've never done a feature before and your short films aren't really that developed and polished, it's too much of a risk for them to buy your show and put $100 million on a series and get you to direct and do all that stuff when you haven't really proven yourself. So it's going to be really
Yeah.
hard. So it's always at the best interest that it would say that as a clause, just in case that Disney doesn't like you, or like whichever
Yeah.
does, Netflix. And so the shows that I've done, I wasn't necessarily going to be the art director, uh, but eventually I did get it. I did want to make the opening theme song. I got the chance to pitch, but I never got it on all three shows I did. And I
Hmm.
was even supposed to be. It says in the contract that I had first pitch. Like nobody else could pitch, but they didn't even
Yeah.
respect that. And I didn't even get the song. Yeah, it's really
Mm.
hard. Everyone is there to. If people don't like you, like it's really hard.
Yeah.
So to be expected is like try your best. It's way easier if your short films have won awards and all that, and you have
Mm.
a voice and people know you. But in the
Yeah.
beginning, it's hard.
I
So I
feel
would
it.
say for you to like you should try and get as many positions as you can, as much control.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's all up to who's putting in the money.
I feel it. That makes a lot of sense. And do you think coming out of school you would have, because you've like had like a very independent spirit through your career, do you think that's like, was the fact that League of Super Evil got kind of picked up, did that give you the mindset that, because a lot of people, it's like, oh, I'll be an animator or a character designer or a background artist, and it seems like your career has been, I'm going to pitch the entire show, and that's almost what you've done exclusively. Do you think that because like that project got picked up, it kind of made you just be super independent throughout your career so far, or you would have been that way anyway?
I think we've been in that way anyway, because I was never interested in working on other people's projects. I was always into damn. I thought I was fucking up again. Um, yeah, I was always doing my own comics and my own stuff. my own music. I was never into. Um, I really like Pixar, but I was never into the DreamWorks stuff when it was a bit too poppy and too
Hmm.
mainstream, and jokes that were making fun of pop culture, or like what I like about Pixar, like the music was very theatrical and things like that. So I was always,
Mm,
even my school, they wanted us to be fine artists, like abstract filmmakers. So
hmm.
to them, I was way too mainstream, but to the mainstream,
Yeah,
I'm way too, I don't know, not
artsy.
mainstream. I can't say abstract, but like my themes were darker. My comedy was dark comedy. Yeah. So yeah, I always want to do my own things.
I feel it. I feel it. I mean, you've managed to be successful in kind of each of the things. Like you've actually created feature films, you've completed albums, you've got shows picked up. So it's a, I mean, it's an instinct. I think sometimes that there's a part of you that wants to humble yourself because you feel like, who am I to try and do these things? But every once in a while, but there's people like you who say I wasn't interested, and because you just kind of went and did your own thing, it worked out. So,
Yeah,
so
I got
yeah,
lucky for sure. But I've created 3 TV shows, but none of them turned out the way I really want to do it. So I don't even
mm,
see those as mine. League
I
of Super
feel
Evil
it.
is probably the best one, but that was more of Phil's baby.
Yeah,
Um, and the other two that we did were supposed to be really, really good, but the studios just took over. And I would love to make a show, an animated show where I actually do have say. And I find in the states, like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, the creators have a bigger voice. And in Canada, I don't know why. Like, I find it weird that you like Canadian shows. I'm sure there's a couple of ones. Like Reboot, that was great.
hmm,
I'm sure there's some other ones, but I find Canadian animation is was is pretty bad because there's a lot of jokes we can't do. There's too many producers higher up that are just, they think they know what they're doing, but they're not even filmmakers, and they've been
yeah,
in a system where we get free money from the government. So yeah, I don't find the talent is as, or they put chains around the talent a lot. And I find in America, in the States, they don't care about the money because they have the money, they have the viewership. And in Canada, we're so scared of, is this going to fly in all these other territories because Canada is so small, not like small
mm,
population, that
yeah,
we don't have the viewership. So we need those sales in other territories. And in the States, you
yeah,
guys don't care. It's like, as long as Americans like it, it doesn't matter. Like, we don't need that money
yeah,
from Germany. Yeah.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I could definitely see that. I think I saw somewhere that like Canada had like 45 million people, and that's like roughly the population of California. So I could see how like
Yeah,
that.
it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's. I could see how like if you need toy sales and all these other things to go along with it in the U.S., even if it doesn't pop international, domestic, you can still make a killing. So yeah, I've always
Yeah,
just felt that like Canada is cool because it's similar enough to the US, but like different enough that it almost feels like a parallel reality where like certain things are like there's just enough differences that like this isn't really the US, but there's so many similarities that I always have been kind of attracted to that kind of quirkiness. Like I always loved Degrassi because I'm like, I know this isn't a US school, but like it
right.
feels just enough like it that it's like, yeah, that always
That you
intrigued
can
me.
watch it and you can relate, but it's like a uh, what, a parallel universe, like a multiverse of
Yes,
the universe.
yes. I feel that. Yeah, for sure. 100%. So, I guess from there, I don't want to talk too much about animation because I know you have so many different aspects to your career, but I'm just super interested by it. So, what do you feel like was the line in animation where you just kind of said, "Fuck it, I'm not going to really focus on this to the degree that you might have prior." Like, what do you feel like is the line that you had to draw?
Yeah, so I think it's like when you work. What really didn't I didn't like is the producers thinking they know best. Like it's funny because like they would buy the show from you because of your voice. But then as soon as they own it, then they shove you aside. And it's like, but you, and it
Yeah.
was very frustrating. And also our third show, we sold it to Teletoon. So usually you sell it to a studio, and then the studio with you goes to get the broadcaster. But we knew people
Yeah.
in the broadcast from League of Super Evil. Ken was good friends with this other guy, and because it sounds like I'm talking shit about everybody, but like Nerdcore was really good. It was really fun, and people were great there. I can't say the same about the last show we did with Portfolio. Portfolio was like one of the worst experiences of my life. Um, but yeah, with Portfolio, we brought the Teletoon, the broadcaster. So it's like we gave them Cartoon Network, who's going to broadcast it on their show, and this small studio
Oh.
gets the Cartoon Network money, and then they basically just didn't do anything we wanted, and the last show we didn't do as well, and so they changed the contract somehow and gave us way less money. And with all the money they got from Teletoon for our show, they started their own studio doing bigger things. So
Mm,
we just really got fucked over. Um, Fuck, what was
damn.
the question?
I was just saying, what was like the line for? I mean, you were getting to it, but what was like the line where you
Oh yeah,
said,
so
"Okay, I
yeah,
just
I
don't want
was
to focus."
yeah, I was really frustrated, and I was really doubting myself. Like, is what I'm
Mm,
doing actually good? So when I did the art shows, people were liking the art, the music videos, people were liking, and then when I did Once Our Land, the comic book, when I finally finished it, it came out, and the reviews were really good.
mm,
So I was like, okay, maybe I'm not that bad. Maybe I did I do have strong points and a good vision, and yeah. So then I continued doing that, and
I feel it.
I also enjoyed. I find making comics is therapeutic because you're just like
Hmm.
on your own. You
Hmm.
can listen to podcasts and watch movies, and you just hash away at what you're doing, and it's slow but steady, and it looks good.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I love like from what I've seen because I haven't been able to get a hold of the physicals of your books, but I like just creep on what I can online. And I was gonna ask about damn, I almost lost the question. Oh, and with your comics, are you also doing those completely independently, or did you start going to publishers and like pitching to them to get them to pick them
So
up?
yeah, so I always did Kickstarter, and then while I was doing my
Mm,
Kickstarter, somebody would hit me up. So Scout
mm,
Comics hit me up, and so I did 500 copies, and I sold 250. And then Scout was doing the normal comic, the floppies, and when they did that, it sold out, and they were selling for like $200 online or something,
oh wow.
because some people really liked it, and then people just like went and bought it. And then I was in France with a French family reunion, uh, and I looked and I sold 250 of my hard covers in
Mm,
one day, and it kept selling.
wow.
And I had to stop and then send messages, and then a lot of people who bought it thought I was um, taking them. I wasn't selling it to them because I was going to take that money to sell it online and make more money. But it was no, I was
Uh
sold out, and I wish I had done more copies because I would have probably done made like sold another 2-3 thousand of my own. So I'd have probably made like
yeah.
$50,000 or something like that.
Wow.
Um, but so yeah, with that first comic, I did. I sold 500, probably made like $20,000, and that's really good
Wow.
for an independent artist. You don't have to sell that much, to make
Yeah.
some good cash, but it's just to get the word out there. That's probably the hardest. And
Yeah.
then by the time Scout Comics finished the run, it was because it was only two floppies and then a trade. I decided, okay, well, there's a fan base for Once Our Land. Let's do the sequel. So the sequel, I put more all the money I made that I put in because I hired an artist from Philippines to. I would give him the sketches of the pages, and then he would render it out, and then I would fix it, whatever needed fixing. I would do the bubbles and the coloring, and then I would hire some colorists for flats. And then once the book was done, it was double the size, way more detailed, a bit more mature. And by the time that came out, I did the Kickstarter and the Scout Comics version floppies, and all the momentum that it had, it was way too long since the first one, so I didn't sell very much. And then from that on, oh,
Thing.
thanks, it's nice of you. So yeah, with the money I did with Once One, I figured I'd put it into Once Two and built a franchise.
Mm,
And then by the time I was done, um, once Two came out, the fans didn't care, or like it had been too big of a gap. And comic book stores, I think there was like maybe 20% less in the world, and they were buying
mm,
less, and so it actually made it. It wasn't a good idea to do such a thing. Yeah, and then I figured, oh, maybe it's because it wasn't a number one. So I decided to do A King's Vengeance, and because Wonderland was like maybe 2 to 7 days of work per page, something like that.
mm,
I decided, okay, let's do a new comic that'll take way less time. And I
mm,
was looking at Mike Mignola's work, and it's like, oh, I could probably do this. Like, it could probably take me a day. So with the coloring, I did
mm,
with coloring and drawing and bubbles, it would take me a day and a half. Uh,
mm.
Probably the longest was a day and a half. So I decided, okay, let's do King's Vengeance. And then when that came out on Kickstarter, it sold even less than Monsterland 2. So I was like, okay, well, fuck that. I'm not doing comics anymore.
Damn.
But
So
now
there's
I'm
a
getting
pin in the
paid.
comics.
Now I'm getting paid. I'm doing comic books for NFT companies, like the
Oh,
Azuki
nice.
DAO. They hired me to
Yeah.
do it, and another one. I'm not sure if I can say who it is yet, but they're paying well. I have carte blanche basically to do what I want,
Oh,
and I can make
nice.
them. It's the nicest work I've done because I have the time to do it, like because I'm getting
Yeah.
paid to do it. So,
Yeah.
and it's cool because like the Azuki one is very manga influenced, and the other one is like painterly slash manga.
Oh, wow.
So it's yeah, it's nice work, and I really enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I saw. I mean, I've seen you've been heavy in the NFTs, but I didn't realize that like the Azuki stuff and like your other stuff was like full like gigs doing comics and stuff. That's really cool.
hmm Yeah, I got lucky because I never know where my next job is coming, like where I'm going to get paid. And
Hmm.
last year, I did like a lot of murals and a lot of different things, and feature length scores and scores for a short film. And this year, I mean, that's 2 years ago, and this year in 2023, I guess last year, but my main gigs were basically just NFT comics.
Wow, that's
It's
you're
funny.
the
It's
first. You know, I talk. Yeah, it's all over the place,
yeah,
and I try to stay into the NFT stuff. You're the first person I've ever met because that like works on like comics or NFTs. Like that's actually you're the first person I've ever heard say that like anywhere in the space.
yeah. I got lucky. Yeah, yeah. I haven't met another NFT comic guy full time yet. I'm sure
Wow.
they're coming. They're out there.
Maybe with some of the work that you're doing, it'll be such a hit that like every that'll be the quote unquote new meta, and everyone's gonna have a NFT comic
Yeah.
for sure. Well, that leads into a question I was gonna have later down the line. Are you still doing your Wasteland NFT project?
No. What we should have done was rug it, like take that money, and we didn't. That's when you know, like a lot of those projects, they just take the money and then they don't do anything with it. And people who invested in your project who bought NFTs, they're waiting for nothing. So that's, I mean, I should have kept some of the money we made because, I think I did like 40,000 for 3 months of work, which is
Mm-hmm.
not that much, but it's pretty good. And
Mm-hmm.
we all decided to put the money back into Wastelanders. We all believed in it. We were like 2 months too late to make way more money.
Mm-hmm.
And we should have put it out on the Ethereum network. Anyway, so we basically gave the whole thing to all the biggest holders as a thank you and just to
Mm-hmm.
tell them we appreciate them. But I'm not involved in it anymore. I always said that if they wanted me to do things, I'm happy to go in and do some illustrations or whatever. But they got their own artists. It's a very different style now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I like the work I did, and I did
Yeah.
write a huge story of like the whole lore and where it was going to go, and it was actually really really cool. But yeah, I don't know what's happening with that. I think it's called Rug Assassins now, but it's very
Oh wow,
popular.
that's very different.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's super different. Damn. Yeah, that's the problem with like the NFT thing is like, and you know this as someone who actually completes projects. It seems like the last couple of years and like the whole scene was rewarding people who don't actually make stuff, and then like people who actually make stuff kind of get like
yeah,
not it, not directly shat on, but kind of inadvertently shat on because you do things that are normal, like take time, development time is long, production time is long, but in NFT years it's like super dog years, and they feel like you rug them if you just take a course of a normal project. And I think that'll change, but it's just like sad that I don't know, like either the money wasn't there or the respect wasn't there for people. Because anyone who looks at your resume sees you finish stuff. So it's
mhm,
just sad that like that wasn't able to feed into like what was hyped. And there's a bunch of bullshit that got hyped instead
yeah,
that for sure rugged.
yeah, yeah. I think, but like I said, like if we did 2 months earlier, if I could draw, you know, 10 times faster, I could have done it, and it would have done something well. Because it would have been cool to develop the comic further, the story, do animation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's okay. I got
Is
some
what
other
it is.
projects that I want to see come into fruition. Yeah, I just really hope I get to do, like I said, a TV show or a movie, animated movie, where I do have carte blanche and people have my back. And that's what's going to happen with
Mm-hmm.
Wonderland, the feature. Hopefully it
Mm-hmm.
comes together. But we did put out that
Mm-hmm.
teaser trailer. If you guys want to see, we did it with Mercury Filmwork, and that is the best studio I've ever worked with. Like everybody
Wow.
was on the same page. We were all. It was like fun to do. I'm sure everyone had a good time. Um, uh, yeah, so I really hope if we get the feature made, I get to work with that studio again. Yeah, because they do amazing work.
Yeah, I
Have you
was
seen Hilda TV show? They're the ones who do that.
Oh wow, I actually didn't know that. I knew they were like a big player up north, but I didn't know they did Hilda. Well, yeah, I was gonna actually ask you about the. You answered the question. Like, what was I was gonna ask you what was going on with the What's-Her-Land because I saw the trailer when you had initially posted, and I'm like, whoa, this looks like a full thing. So it was like it's a teaser, but it's also kind of a pitch. Is that kind
Yeah,
of what you guys were thinking when you went into it? I feel it.
yeah, yeah. Because for the feature film I made, Dead Check, the live action one, it was getting no traction until I actually did the proof of concept trailer
Mm-hmm.
pitch, and then that's what got it people interest. And then I did the same thing with another feature called Dark Tide, and I went to Cannes with
Mm-hmm.
that pitch, and now
Nice.
there's interest as well. And now I just finished when we were supposed to do this interview several months ago. I was shooting a short film, Come In. It's like this horror film about two teenage girls fighting to the death and summoning a demon. And so I'm doing that now as a short film, so I can submit to festivals, not as a proof of concept, but I will also have a teaser trailer with it and the script with it.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't think people should be spending that much amount of money in their own work, but and time. But that's the only way I've seen my things get greenlit. So if investing, you can invest in a house and other things, or you can invest in yourself in your own projects, which is what I've been doing. But I don't own a home
You
yet, so
fair
you know.
enough. Yeah, but I feel like what you're building towards is way great bigger than a home because you're kind of like setting yourself up like one of these things is gonna like be the fucking, you know what I mean, the real thing, and it's just
Hopefully,
like
yeah,
yeah.
we could have
Well, I
our interview in 50 years that we said, and then we'll see what happened.
no man, it's gonna happen. I'm telling you, I believe in it. I think that something because like I think the reason I also admire you is because you play the long game, and I know that emotionally, immensely, that's I. You haven't talked a lot about it, but I'm sure that's not easy. Like you talked about the confidence thing, and like having things not really go your way for a long time, or having them go in a way that you felt like wasn't fair. Like at one point, it does hurt your confidence, and I feel like life rewards people who stick stuff out like that, and
Hmm.
even if it's not in a time in a manner that we would think. I mean, Ridley Scott was, I think he was like an advertising art director till he was like 40 something or
Yeah, his
50.
first feature was at 40. The Duelist,
Yeah.
yeah, or the Duel.
Damn.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, when I did Dead Shack, I was 35. I was like, oh, I beat I Ridley Scott. And I thought after that, like I was set because the movie wasn't that bad. I liked it,
hmm
especially for the budget that we had.
Yeah.
And I was gonna get repped by the same agent as Chris Miller and Phil Lord. He
Oh,
saw my,
wow.
he called me, and we talked for half an hour, and I was like, yeah, well, this is great. I'm going to be part of the big leagues now. And then nothing happened, and I still haven't made a movie.
Damn.
It's been, it's like 7 years now. Yeah. So, but I was listening to your episode with Chrome, and it was really funny when he said that when he spoke to the students, the feedback he got is like, yeah, you took too long to get to where you're at. You know, that was insane.
Yeah.
Kids
Nah,
just hop on
that's
that
crazy.
car and like Formula One style, and just like, yeah, here you go. I'm doing this. I'm part of the big league. Yeah,
Man.
yeah, it doesn't work like that,
But
kids.
no, it doesn't. And like you guys are a testament to it. And I had a boss. He was very successful, like very, very like monetarily. Are you still there? Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things he started a really, really big company that he sold for a lot of money. And the one thing he said was that like a prerequisite to success is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. And I feel like that for me personally, that's something I really struggle with. I think I've learned how to deal with it because I'm too disagreeable to kind of quit at things that I want to do. But I was gonna ask you, like, do you? Because you always seem excited. Like every time I've seen an interview with you or seen you posting, it doesn't seem like you don't seem like you're like struggling with mental health. You just seem like pumped and ready to go all the time. Is that? And I'm sure that's not true, but is that how you feel, or are you just sticking with this because you know you have to make it work?
Well, I'm always working on something, and I'm always optimistic. Most of the time, it
Mm.
doesn't happen, and I do get frustrated, especially when you
Hmm.
see like Zack Snyder's new movie, which is like total garbage. And how much money they gave him, and they totally believe in him, and they still believe in him. It's crazy. So that's really frustrating when you're seeing these projects getting greenlit. But I like my projects, and I believe in it, and um, if as soon as you stop, that's when you failed. So I'm just trying to, I'm hoping that I'm making the right decision and never quitting. And also, you know you're old when you only talk about the past and you stop talking about the future and projects you have up and coming. And also, I exercise a lot, so I think that has to do with it too, being healthy. Did you cut out? Shit. Damn.
Dude,
So where was
they're
I?
trying to stop
Did it
us.
cut out? What?
You were firing off. You said you always have projects going and that like
Oh yeah,
it's frustrating. Yeah.
yeah. For sure, when you see them uh, projects that are without finished scripts, without a finished vision to go in production, because that those Zack Snyder movies. I mean, especially the last one, it looks like a TV show that could have been made for maybe 60 million as opposed to 177 million. Like, I don't understand where the
Yeah.
money goes. And a
Yeah.
lot of feature films, when Pixar, they'll redo halfway through after they spend 80 million, they'll redo the whole movie. It's just a
Yeah.
waste of money. And if you look
Yeah.
at like one of my favorite artists and directors, Jean-Marie Perrin, who did
Mm-hmm.
Mars, um,
Mars
like
Express.
Mars Express, and they came in the way I would make a movie is like, no, you finish everything, and there's no redoing, and then you'll make a
Yeah.
great feature film that looks like the caliber of an $80 million movie, but you made it for
Yeah.
30 or 20.
Yeah.
So yeah, that guy is incredible. He's yeah, fucking brilliant dude. So and also I do exercise a lot. I eat healthy, and I think that gives me the energy to do what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That I think that's like especially drawing and being at a computer, like
yeah,
constantly like staying healthy is like soup because people think they're depressed and all this other shit and it's like you don't see the sun, you don't work out, you don't drink water. It's like you feel like shit because you're living like shit. But
yeah.
yeah, for
And every
sure.
time you feel like shit, I know that if I go, okay, it's like, oh, I feel so shitty. I'm tired, and I know that I need to run or go to the gym, and I don't want to
Hmm.
do it. But I know that as soon as I do it, I'm gonna feel
Yeah.
good, and it happens every
Yeah.
time. And I tell
Yeah.
my girlfriend who's like, oh, I feel like she's like, just go run, just go do something. She's like, no, I
Yeah.
I need to take a nap. And then I force her so much that she actually does it. And then she's
Yeah.
like, wow, I feel great. It's like, yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah. That's super important. And I also like a lot what you said. I'm gonna go down two tracks. Um, One about the budget. I think that like guys like you who don't, and I think Jeremy Perrin and like Alberto, the thing I respect about guys like you who kind of exist outside of like that more mainstream system, whenever I've seen or read interviews from you guys, like you just talk about like the budget. And I think there's a respectfulness of like finances that comes from like more independent guys and an efficiency of doing things that I feel like you don't hear other people ever talking about. And when you see the budgets, you understand why. But I think that's another thing that's really important about what you're saying is because the only person I've ever heard bring up budget was I think it was Alberto Miogo, and he was talking about how wasteful some of these productions are, and how they could just
Yeah.
do it for so much. Like guys like you who exist outside any kind of propped up system for an extended period of time, there's like a respect for how much things cost, and it's something I never thought about until I hear guys who've had to do it themselves say you don't need to spend that much. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. And what was cool with Nerdcore is that when I was art directing, I was also the lead designer. I was main character designer. I was doing all the coloring. You don't need to delegate color to one person. You just get a
Yeah.
really good artist who can do both. And so
Yeah.
instead of waiting a whole day for your line work then to be colored,
Yeah.
you get all that done in half a day or a quarter day. Um, so there's just the way they're spending their money, and just going in production without a finished script is completely useless. Like, just
Yeah.
put it off for another 6 months until the script is done. Like,
Yeah.
it's that easy. You got to pay one person or two people to write the script. It's way easier
Yeah.
than going to production and then redoing everything or making people like twiddle their thumbs. That's like, it's not even rocket science. It's so simple and easy to
Yeah.
understand. And the other thing
Yeah.
is also being transparent with the budget. I've
Mm.
worked with producers who they change the budget all the time because I know they're taking a bigger cut. Like it's like, oh no, we
Mm.
have 20,000 for this short. Oh yes, we actually have 10. Oh, we only have 22,000 for you because we have to get paid too. It's like I'm doing all the work, bitch. Like
Yeah.
why are you getting paid and how much are you getting paid? Oh, I want to
Yeah.
see the budget. No, no, yeah, it's we're still working on it. It's like, yeah, right. Yeah,
Damn,
so being
dude.
transparent with budget is also very important. And when I did Dead Shack, Amber Ripley, who's a producer I keep working with, she's very transparent with it. She'll show me the budget. And when we did Dead Shack, um, uh, I needed an extra day to make the film work, and so I deferred
Mm-hmm.
all my direct payment. And
Mm.
the two producers I had, they deferred their producer payment, and she showed
Oh
me a whole
wow.
budget. So he's like, "Look, we don't have money. This is where everything's going. Like, what do you want to cut?" It's like, "Well, we can't." So okay, this is what I'm gonna do. And if it wasn't for them and my decision to defer my payment, that movie would have been like complete shit, and we would have lost money because if we didn't pay back the certain amount of money that we got, we have to pay interest on it.
Oh
And
wow.
if it would have been a bad movie, we wouldn't have been able to sell to Shutter. Shutter's really good at paying movies so what they're worth.
Yeah.
Netflix not so much. But yeah, if you're making a
Mm.
horror movie, try and get a meeting with Shutter because they're really cool.
Oh wow. That's crazy. I heard you tell that story, but I didn't understand what you meant when you said you deferred your payment. So that's yeah, that's crazy. And didn't I hear you say it was like for the trailer or something that you got those extra shots, or was it for
No, no,
like?
it was for the feature. It was
Oh,
just like a
okay.
bunch of scenes, like how to like getting the guy to get up, get him to look on the right, get
Yeah.
him to put some bullets in the gun,
Yeah.
and just a bunch of like almost B-roll, only B-roll stuff, but other stuff too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because sometimes if you watch, especially like stuff maybe from like Europe where the budgets aren't the same and they don't have those pickup shots, you see how much
Mhm.
it really adds. Like me and my wife were watching a show recently. It was a Polish show and it was really good, but there was one scene that was like super jarring where like they're having a conversation, the wife gets pissed and then she just cuts to her leaving in the middle and it's like you could tell they didn't for whatever reason they couldn't get that extra shot and it takes you out of it.
Yeah,
Didn't make the biggest deal, but like over time that shit adds up, so I could see why it's worth it.
yeah, it's always good to get those extra shots because like if they cut to something like if they were talking about a porcelain doll and they had that close up of porcelain doll, then you could
Hmm.
have cut to that before cutting to her leaving the room. So
Yeah.
it would have made it less jarring. But yeah, having
Yeah.
those 180-degree like flips and there's a bunch of things that, if you don't have that many shots, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And you brought up something else that I really wanted to ask you about because you're the first non-American who's worked on a production that I was able to interview, and you mentioned my other favorite non-American like director, Jeremy Perrin, because
Yeah.
I love the Last Man Show and what they were able to do with such limited animation and such a full story. So that leads into like, I don't know how to ask this. Why haven't or why don't more people push to come to the US with their projects? Because in my head, I know that probably isn't a magic fix, but you guys are like making stuff that I feel like is way more interesting than half the shit that I see coming out of here. And especially like with Last Man, and we're just now getting the full series in English here. And I'm like, and it's almost 10 years old. So, like, what are some of the like pitfalls or maybe roadblocks for like a Canadian or a Frenchman with projects from breaking into like the US or just coming straight here?
The biggest problem is if you don't have an agent or a manager who has those
Mm.
connections, there's no way you can have a sit down or a callback or anything.
Oh.
Even because when I was going to get that agent, it would have helped everything. And even with Bronze Studios, I was pitching them movies, and because they
Oh
wanted to
wow.
get Once or Land, but it didn't work out because I already sold it to uh, Mercury and Amber.
Hmm.
But they were interested, and then I was like, "Well, I have a bunch of other things. Like, let me show you my other things." And then I was like, "Hey, can I also pitch to your live action department?" And they said, "No, it's a different department, and but I can get you in touch with her." So I spoke to her. She's like, "Hey, I want to send you some stuff." It's like, "Yeah, I'd get your agent to send it." It's like, "I don't have an agent. I've never needed one. I've done all these shows and movies." She's like, "Yeah, but you need an agent or a manager." I was like, "Well, why? I'm already
Mm.
pitching to your animation department." It's like, "That's something different." Like, yeah, until you have an agent, don't bother calling us. It's like, Jesus. So that's like the
Jeez.
biggest, um, which is really weird. Like, I don't see why I can't call, Shutter and be like, "Hey, can I meet with you guys? Uh, Dead Shack is doing really well for you." But yeah, it just doesn't work like that. And it's yeah. And also, it's weird because in France they have the best students and young filmmakers, like Gobelin
Yeah.
Film of Animation, and they have a couple other
Mhm.
schools that are doing like top notch stuff. So they
Yeah.
have some of the best artists in the world, but France animated films are like pretty. Most of them are pretty bad, and
Yeah.
it's weird because they have the best talent, but they don't have the funding or the studios to do it. Um, but then what's that? Scavenger Rain. Is that a French
Yeah.
studio? Uh, it's
It,
it's
it,
Titmouse and a French studio, or is it just Titmouse?
it
Because
might be
Titmouse is
both.
awesome.
I actually don't know. Yeah, Titmouse is
Oh, it's
awesome
a
for that.
Primal is the French studio.
Yeah, La
Uh,
Cachette.
yeah, they're awesome. Like their new one
Hmm.
too, Collège des Cauchemars, or so the ones with the kids in the summer camp.
Hmm.
Did you
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it. I've seen it on Instagram, but I haven't seen the actual project.
If you get a VPN, you can watch it. You put a
Oh, nice.
French Paris or whatever, and you can find it online. And you can watch it.
Oh, for sure. Definitely gotta check that out. So, like, the main roadblock for like you guys outside of the U.S. is the whole like manager
I
agent
think it's just
kind
like
of.
any independent person. If you're even in the US
Mm,
and you're an amazing artist, and you're, dope, and you don't have an agent or manager,
you
uh,
can't
you
pitch.
can't get your film made. Yeah.
Wow. Damn, learning something new every day. I had no idea about I'm learning a lot cuz in my head I'm always like in my head I'm like I wish they could just come here, but I know things don't work that way. But for me, yeah. Well, okay, well, I guess that that leads into like my next question. What are kind of like your goals now? Like for now, like where you are in your career and everything that you've done, are you just planning on just cranking out more and more projects and like continuing to try and get them produced? Is that like your main goal, just continuing to keep going?
Yeah, so I'm still trying to get Land feature made. When
Mm-hmm.
that's greenlit, I want to do Land 3, the graphic novel,
Mm-hmm.
and hire Jake Bilboa from Philippines, who helped me
Mm-hmm.
draw the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And but I would tell him to put less detail just so that's easier to color because I don't want him
Yeah.
to take as long as the last one.
Yeah.
Learning from how I'm doing the Azuki comic and A King's Vengeance, how much faster that was.
Yeah.
And then I want to still do. I like to, if Land does really well, I have a bunch of other ideas and I have Bibles for them that hopefully, with that momentum, I can get those made.
Yeah.
Um, and then also the other feature films, like hopefully I get Dark Tide done and some other ones. And my goal is to do like the most expensive hard sci-fi film ever made. Hard sci-fi
Wow.
is like super realistic, like scientifically
Mm-hmm.
realistic. So when they're in space, there's no sound, like things like that. The explosions would be there
Damn.
because it's so cold. There's actually no explosions in space. So trying to do like something really uh, uh, kind of like Star Wars, but like way more real. So that's my goal. Oh shit, we cut out again. I'm back.
It's all good.
Um,
We'll we'll
yes,
we'll close it
my
out after this one, so it won't be too much.
my goal is to make. I don't know where it cut out, but I was saying my goal is to make the most realistic, expensive sci-fi movie ever made, and hard sci-fi because explosions in space, like because it's so cold, there wouldn't be explosions, and I would like to make something
Mm,
that's really uh, like fun to watch, but also very realistic. That's my goal.
I feel it. I feel it. Well, we'll lead into my final question, which might be kind of long, but um, if I could preface this, like I always try to end on lessons from my guests. Like, what are some of the biggest lessons? And a couple of the biggest ones I got from you, just from your experiences, to work on a bunch of different projects. So even when things aren't working out, you have something you're excited about. Um, don't let you know the fact that you're not a live action director stop you from being a live action director. Go after stuff. But in your own words, what would you, if you could go back on your career, how would you like do it perfectly? Like, what are mistakes that you wish, or things that you wish you would have done differently, or how would you have handled stuff if you could do it all over again to like maybe have a smoother ride? Or you, if it's nothing, that's fine too.
So the best advice I can give is always finish your projects. Um,
Mm,
a lot of people are like, Pete, how do you do so much of the same? Like, how do you do so much? And I always tell them that I just finish everything I have and I release it. And sometimes, some projects to get released, it takes a bit longer. So I might have like two, three things releasing it at the same week. I don't know why it always happens that way, but it always releases at the same time. And it sucks that
mm-hmm.
it does that, but um, yeah, releasing things, and even though it sucks sometimes, like you learn from it and release it, and learn from it. Then for advice I could give myself, I guess, don't think you know everything. It's hard because you should believe in yourself, and it does
Yeah.
get frustrating when people are not nice or they think they know best. But try and be um, try and be everyone's best friend, even though you might not like him. Don't let that ego get into you, even though that guy might be a piece of shit or that person is stealing from you, because you're not gonna get things back if you're mean to them, and it's
Yeah.
very frustrating. But yeah, if I was a bit nicer at the beginning, I think I would probably got more things my way. But
Yeah.
yeah, it just sucks. Like it's also heartbreaking when someone's just destroying what you did, and it's hard to hide those feelings. But yeah, try your
Yeah.
best to be nice. Um, I mean, a lot of the advice I would give myself is like, watch out for this person, watch out for that person, don't believe them.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess just be a better judgment of character.
Judge of character.
Make sure
Mm-hmm.
you go in projects with the right people. Um,
Yeah.
because yeah, when I sometimes like when I did League of Super Evil, Jay Faulkner and we really didn't get along. Now we're cool, like
Mm,
now we're friends, or like we're friendly to each other and we respect each other. But at the beginning, he had a very old school mindset, and I had a very new school because I was 27 at the time when I did League of Super Evil, so it was very
mm-hmm.
more fresh. And having him as a series director, it was a nightmare to go. Like I hated the fact I had to go to work on my own show because I had to work with
Mm,
this guy who we didn't see eye to eye on anything. And
yeah.
yeah, so it can make, not working with the right person can make your dream come true a nightmare, which is
Yeah.
sucks. always try and take the time. And it's the thing is that it's hard. Like everyone puts on their
Yeah.
game face until you sign the deal. So it's super hard to know. And
Yeah.
maybe that guy really jive with the where you got your recommendation. They jive with them, but you got everyone's different. So it's really hard to yeah. I can give that advice to everybody, but it's going to be different. And it's like playing
Yeah.
cars casino. Like you never know what the outcome's going to be. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know we have the issues and you have to go, but you said something super interesting. Especially with the way projects go, you're not always going to have so much control because the projects get pretty big pretty fast and you end up working with people you maybe never even met prior. So like how like I'm trying to think of the right way. Like how do you think it's worth like we were talking earlier, you said like if you get your first show, don't trip too much off of trying to get all the money. You probably won't. Don't. Do you think it's worth like low key letting your first show sink if it means maintaining the relationships in the process over like trying to stick to a creative vision? Like which, because that was something I've always thought about because the fights tend to be like you wanted it one way or you created it with these things that are important in the
Yeah.
same way you maybe have to let the money sink. Do you think on your first couple of projects you just because I know on the flip side you could get David Ayerd where they take it from you, make it suck, and then scapegoat you. I mean, I don't. That's what he says happened to him on like Suicide Squad. So I know your name is on the line, but I've heard also on your side too where people will fight for the vision, burn bridges, and then maybe that also like which do you think is better to err on the side of?
It's hard, man, because like with Freaktown, that was going to be a really good show, and I'm still, I still have created by Peter and Phil, but that is totally not the show that we wanted to do, and
Mm-hmm.
we were trying not burn bridges, and yet we did, and our name was like tarnished in the industry for a
Yeah.
bit. So it's like even when you try and do the right thing and let them do their thing, your name is on it, and then people still talk shit. So yeah, I guess that goes with the first advice. The other advice I did, like try and make sure you're at least signing with a company that with people that you like, and that
Mm-hmm.
you see eye to eye. It's hard, man. Like you never know what the outcome is. Like if only you could see. Okay, the best advice we can give is get a fucking time machine and get like a window so you can like, talk to yourself in that parallel universe or whatever and see if you made the right decision. That would be the best advice. Um, yeah, it's hard. Like so
For
I wouldn't
sure.
know what to tell you because if you do one thing, it could be bad, and if you do the other one, it could be bad.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. For
do the
sure.
best.
I guess that's what yeah, that's what they mean when they say a huge part of success is luck. It's like not just getting the
It
project,
is.
it's that it
Yeah.
goes well.
Yeah. There's so much,
For
like,
sure.
so many cards to play, right? Like, just to get the meeting without an agent or manager is huge luck. And then get the studio to like
Hmm.
it, and then get the broadcaster to like want to make it to give you the money, and then making
Yeah.
sure that who you're working with, you're jiving and see eye to eye, that it is fun, and you're challenging yourselves. You get the right people. And then when it comes out, that they don't just drop it and then don't talk about it, because you could have the best show,
Yeah.
like Last Man, and then no one's seen it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so there's so many things that play with luck, and you could have the worst show, and it drops, and it's a huge success because it got aired at the right time and it got the right promotion, but it's not very good, and that
Yeah.
happens a lot too. Like because I hate a lot of those DreamWorks movies, but there's and Illumination, but they have the right push and they're really catering to a specific target, and
Yeah.
they're so successful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for like doing this interview, pushing through the connection issues, and being super candid. I felt like there was nothing you held back. I really appreciate that.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for having me. And thanks for
Of
having your
course.
roster of like amazing artists.
No, you're definitely one of them, man. Hopefully, I'm one of the people pushing you out there to more folks, even though this podcast is very little. But I think more people need to know who you are.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it.
All right.